Europe pays 3 times what America pays for energy. 3 times. And in a supply crisis, its gas reserves wouldn't last 90 days. How did the continent with the highest standard of living become the most energy-vulnerable economy on Earth? The answer involves a dictator, a pipeline, a nuclear shutdown, and a bill that 450 million Europeans are still paying. And here's why this isn't just Europe's problem. When the world's second-largest economy can't keep its factories running, the shockwaves hit your supply chain, your prices, and your job. 48 million Europeans cannot adequately heat their homes. Let that sink in. 48 million in the richest union of nations on Earth. Meet one of them, a 68-year-old pensioner in Plovdiv, Bulgaria. She lives alone in a concrete panel apartment built in 1972. Single-pane windows, no insulation. Her pension is €350 a month. Her winter heating bill, €120. She eats one hot meal a day so she can keep the radiator running until midnight. She turns it off at midnight to save money. By morning, the temperature inside her apartment drops to 8 degrees Celsius. She is one of 1.8 million Bulgarians, nearly 1 in 3, living in energy poverty, and she lives in the European Union. Meanwhile, German households pay 39 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. Americans pay 18. BASF, the world's largest chemical company, hasn't turned a profit in Germany in 2 years, and 120,000 manufacturing jobs disappeared in Germany in 2024 alone. But Europe didn't stumble into this trap. It walked in, eyes wide open, and the first step was taken in 2011. To understand this trap, you have to go back to a decision made in a country that doesn't even have earthquakes. But first, the deal with the devil. Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, Europe made a bet. Cheap Russian gas would fuel the continent's factories, heat its homes, and power its growth. By 2021, 40% of all pipeline gas flowing into Europe came from Russia. 40% from one supplier controlled by one man. And nobody championed this dependency harder than Angela Merkel. She pushed Nord Stream 2, an $11 billion pipeline running directly from Russia to Germany, bypassing Ukraine entirely. The strategic logic was insane. You're building a direct gas line to a country whose president annexes neighboring territories. But the economic logic was irresistible. Cheap energy meant German exports stayed competitive. Gazprom's revenue hit $138 billion in 2021. Europe was their biggest customer. And Vladimir Putin's calculus was simple. Make Europe so dependent on Russian gas that any sanctions would hurt Brussels more than Moscow. It worked. March 2011, the Fukushima disaster hits Japan, a country sitting on the Pacific Ring of Fire, hammered by a 9.0 magnitude earthquake and a 14-meter tsunami. Angela Merkel watches the footage and announces Germany will shut down every nuclear reactor. Germany, a country with zero earthquake risk and no coastline facing a tsunami zone. By April 2023, Chancellor Olaf Scholz pulled the plug on Germany's last 3 reactors, Emsland, Isar 2, Neckar-Westheim 2. The result was immediate. Germany flipped from a net electricity exporter, shipping out 21 terawatt-hours, to a net importer, buying 22 terawatt-hours. In a single year, energy analysts estimate that if nuclear had stayed online, German electricity would have been 23% cheaper. Keep that number in mind. It's going to matter. February 24, 2022. Russia invades Ukraine. Germany suspends Nord Stream 2. And the bill comes due. German wholesale electricity hits €469 per megawatt hour in August 2022. That's a 15 times increase from 2020 levels. Let that sink in. 15 times. Then, September 2022, someone sabotages the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines, the largest methane release in human history, between 445,000 and 485,000 tons, roughly 5 times the previous record. The physical infrastructure of Europe's gas addiction destroyed on the ocean floor. So Europe lost its Russian gas, it shut down its nuclear plants, and then it did something that would have been unthinkable 5 years earlier. Europe didn't solve its energy crisis. It bought its way out at a 345% premium. Between 2022 and mid-2025, the EU spent €258 billion on liquefied natural gas imports. 117 billion of that went to a single country, the United States. Europe built LNG terminals at breakneck speed, and half of them sit empty today. Let's follow the money, because who's actually getting rich from Europe's desperation tells you everything about this trap. The numbers tell the story. U.S. LNG exports to Europe went from 21 billion cubic meters in 2021 to 81 billion in 2025, nearly a 4 times increase in 4 years. The United States now supplies 57% of all EU LNG imports. One company, Cheniere Energy, routes 70% of its exports to European terminals. And 117 billion euros of Europe's LNG spending went to a single country, the United States. And Europe pays through the nose for every cubic meter. EU wholesale gas prices run 4 to 5 times higher than American prices. EU wholesale electricity, $90 per megawatt hour. In the US, $48, roughly double. That's not a gap. That's a tax on being European. Every euro of that premium comes out of European household energy bills and factory budgets. That pensioner in Plovdiv paying 120 euros a month for heat, she's subsidizing American LNG shareholders. But here's where the desperation turns into stupidity. EU regasification capacity increased 32% since 2022, up to 338.9 billion cubic meters. Sounds impressive, until you learn the average utilization rate in the first half of 2025 was just 52%. Germany's shiny new LNG terminals, running at 32% capacity. Finland, 17%. Greece, 19%. By 2030, Europe's regasification capacity will be 3 times its actual LNG demand. Over half of this infrastructure may become stranded assets, billion-euro monuments to panic buying. Europe built the infrastructure for a crisis that's already moving on. Billions in terminals that may never earn back their construction cost, paid for by taxpayers who can barely afford their electricity bills. Now let's talk about what happens when energy costs eat your economy alive. BASF, the world's largest chemical company. Their energy bill rose $2.9 billion in 2022 alone. Their response? 11 plants closed at their Ludwigshafen flagship, 2,600 jobs cut, 0 profit in Germany for over 2 years. Martin Brudermüller, BASF's CEO, didn't write angry letters to Parliament. He moved. A 10 billion euro mega-complex in Zhanjiang, China. Because in China, energy is half the price. Do the math. And BASF isn't alone. European chemical production has collapsed, down 18% in Germany, down 30% in the UK since 2019. Meanwhile, China's chemical output grew 8% in just the first half of 2025. Europe's share of the global chemical market has collapsed to 13%. 20 years ago, it was over 20. China now holds 46. 120,000 manufacturing jobs disappeared in Germany in 2024 alone. The factories aren't closing because of labor costs or regulation. They're closing because the lights cost too much to keep on. Hey, quick question for the comments. If you were running BASF, would you stay in Germany and fight the energy costs, or would you move to China where electricity is half the price? Let me know below. Mario Draghi, the man who saved the euro, looked at these numbers and said 3 words that should terrify every European. You'd think Europe would just fix this. Build more wind farms, restart the nuclear plants, cut the cord to Russia once and for all. But here's what makes this a trap and not just a crisis. Every single exit is locked. Mario Draghi, the man who saved the euro with whatever it takes, called this an existential challenge. His prescription? 800 billion euros. 1 year later, 11% implemented. The man who saved the euro says Europe might not survive this, and nobody is listening. Let me show you why. Because each door out of this trap was locked deliberately by someone who had the key. Renewables are the future. Everybody says so. But here's the dirty secret nobody in Brussels will admit. Renewables need grid infrastructure that takes decades to build. And EU leaders had a choice: invest in the grid or invest in LNG terminals. They chose LNG. 338.9 billion cubic meters of regasification capacity, half of it sitting empty. And there's a structural problem that makes this worse. Wind and solar are intermittent. When the wind stops, you still need gas for baseload power. And gas sets the marginal electricity price, meaning even when half your grid runs on wind, you still pay gas prices for all of it. The result? Europe spent 258 billion euros on LNG, but still can't keep the lights on when the wind stops. December 12, 2024. Wind generation in Germany drops to 3.5%. Wholesale electricity spikes to 936 euros per megawatt hour in peak hours. For a few hours, German power cost more than anywhere on Earth. Remember that 23% we talked about, the savings nuclear would have provided. On a day like that, it's not a talking point. It's the difference between keeping a factory open and shutting it down. Merkel didn't just shut down reactors. She demolished cooling towers, physically, irreversibly. That wasn't an accident. That was a choice. You can argue about whether nuclear shutdown was right or wrong, but demolishing the infrastructure so it can never be restarted? That's permanent. New nuclear takes 10 to 15 years to build in Europe. France's Flamanville reactor, started in 2007, finally connected to the grid in December 2024. 17 years. Original budget, 3.3 billion euros. Final cost, 13.2 billion. 4 times over budget, nearly 2 decades late. Political will for nuclear is growing. Italy is exploring it. Denmark, too. Even Germany is having the conversation again. But legislation lags years behind the rhetoric. You can't vote your way to a nuclear plant by next winter. Think about that for a second. You can want nuclear power back. You can vote for it. You can even pass a law. But you cannot undemolish a cooling tower. Some decisions are permanent, and Merkel made hers. Putin's strategy was never just to sell gas. It was to make Europe so dependent that cutting off Russia meant cutting off yourself. That was the design, and it worked, even in losing. Because Europe didn't break the addiction, it changed suppliers. January 1st, 2025. Ukraine stops transiting Russian gas. 14.5 billion cubic meters per year, gone overnight. March 2026, the EU formally begins banning Russian gas imports. First restrictions on new contracts. Full pipeline ban by late 2027. But the replacement is more expensive, not less. EU gas storage entered 2026 at roughly 62%, the lowest in years. By late January, it had fallen to 45%. The EU needs to inject 60 billion cubic meters just to meet storage targets for next winter. Now watch what happens when you put the 3 locks together. High energy prices drive factories out. Factories leaving shrinks the tax base. A smaller tax base means less money for the energy transition. Less investment means energy stays expensive, and the cycle repeats. This is the doom loop. Germany, the engine of Europe, has posted negative or stagnant GDP growth since 2023. Every other advanced economy expanded. Germany stalled. EU industrial electricity costs double what American factories pay, 1.5 times what Chinese and Indian plants pay. Draghi's warning was blunt. Without 800 billion euros in investment, the gap becomes permanent, not temporary, not cyclical, permanent. This is Britain's deindustrialization of the 1970s and 80s, but worse. Back then, factories closed because of labor costs. Today, they're not closing. They're moving to America and China, and they're taking the jobs, the tax revenue, and the innovation with them. So what does this actually cost? Not in billions, in human lives, in communities destroyed, in a continent's future stolen. Remember the pensioner in Plovdiv? She's not waiting for a rescue, because the death spiral means her situation gets worse, not better. Factories leave Bulgaria, the tax base shrinks, the government has less money for insulation programs, and her heating bill goes up again next winter. She is trapped in a loop that nobody designed to help her escape, and she's not alone. In Portugal, Greece, Lithuania, 30% of the population cannot keep their homes warm. These are EU member states. They have access to EU funds. The funds aren't enough. Draghi said Europe needed 800 billion euros. 1 year later, 11% of his proposals are implemented. The EU allocated 200 million euros for small modular reactors. It spent 258 billion on LNG. That's the priority list. 65% of Bulgarian housing stock was built before 1990. No insulation, single-pane windows. Retrofitting would cost billions, but the money went to LNG terminals that sit half-empty. Martin Brudermüller didn't wait for the politicians. He moved. BASF's 10 billion euro Zhanjiang complex in China is operational. Ludwigshafen, the company's 160-year-old flagship, is bleeding jobs. 11 plants closed, 2,600 positions gone. The crown jewel of European chemistry is being hollowed out while its Chinese replacement ramps up production, and the dominoes keep falling. Spira shut the Rheinwerk aluminum plant. Nearstar suspended the Budel zinc facility. ThyssenKrupp is closing sites. 120,000 manufacturing jobs lost in Germany in 2024. Total manufacturing employment down to 6.67 million. And here's the part that makes this permanent. Every factory that leaves takes its supply chain with it. The engineers, the tool makers, the apprenticeships. Once that knowledge base is gone, it doesn't come back. You can't rebuild a chemical industry with a press conference. Germany's total manufacturing workforce has fallen to 6.67 million, and it's still shrinking. Europe spent 258 billion euros on LNG, and half its terminals sit empty. Built 32% more regasification capacity than it had in 2022, and can't fill them. The continent that preaches the green transition is burning cash to buy gas it used to get cheap from a pipeline it blew up, and the 200 million euros it allocated for small modular nuclear reactors, that's less than what it spent on LNG in a single afternoon. But here's the part that nobody in Brussels wants to talk about. Europe didn't escape its energy dependency. It changed dealers. Russia's share of EU gas dropped from 40% to 6%. The United States now supplies 57% of all EU LNG and could hit 80% by 2030. Europe traded a pipeline to Moscow for a shipping lane to Houston. And this time, the dealer isn't a dictator you can sanction. It's your military ally who knows exactly how much you need him. So the next time someone tells you Europe solved its energy crisis, ask them one question. Who controls the tap now? Because the answer isn't Europe. It never was. And until that changes, the lights stay on only as long as someone else decides they should. And if you haven't seen our deep dive into why Australia can't quit China, check it out. Links on screen. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your prediction in the comments. Will Europe build its way out of this trap in the next decade, or will it still be paying the premium in 2035?